So here we're going to launch the Kubernetes dashboard. It's the official dashboard. It has its GitHub repo, and you'll see all the details that you need there. So to do this, all we need to do is to do kubectl apply -f and then give the link to the YAML file. Now this is coming from that Kubernetes dashboard repo that we were just looking at briefly. So we're going to do this, and this happens very, very quickly. So we do kubectl apply -f, and you see the various services and apps are created. So we can do kubectl get services, and what you'll see is that we had Jupyter, we have scheduler, but oh, wait a minute, we're not seeing that. So one thing you'll notice is that if you do get services dash namespace equals, I believe it's kube system. Yeah, there it is, Kubernetes dashboard. It's in a different namespace. So our default namespace, we're not seeing that. But if you want to look at the details there, you can just do get services under the kube system namespace. Okay. The one thing we're going to need here is we're going to need the cluster info, and I showed you how to do this in a previous video. So again, kubectl cluster info is very useful, especially on AWS, because it gives you a direct link to the load balancer for accessing your cluster, as opposed to having to manually spelunk through the EC2 console or using the AWS CLI tool. You can figure out this information in other ways, but very useful directly from kubectl. Okay, so one thing we're going to do is that we can do a kubectl proxy here, and I'm not actually going to do that. Oops, kubectl proxy, right? You'll see that it starts a web server locally at localhost on port 8001, and that's going to do exactly what I'm going to show you, but I'm going to hit the load balancer directly, and I'll walk you through the details of the proxy in the blog post. So what we're going to do is take the host name that we got from cluster info, and we're going to add /UI to it. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste this URL, and I'm going to do /UI. Okay, and so Chrome is going to complain, and we're going to proceed anyway. Okay, so now we're going to get a prompt for logging in. So we need a username and password. The username is admin, and in order to get the password, what we're going to do is we're going to use cops, and I showed you a little bit of the details in the first video about cops when we set up the Kubernetes cluster. So we're going to do cops get secrets. So secret is a very useful way for storing passwords within a cluster. Often you can read those in via something like LastPass or a vault or something like that. But regardless, in our current config, those passwords are auto-generated, and you can see this crazy string here. So we're going to copy and paste that. So I have copied it into my clipboard, type my username as admin, and paste in that password. All right, so we're into the dashboard, and as I tell you in the post, what we're going to do is we're going to click token, and in order to get my token, I'm going to do the same thing as we did before. So notice instead of doing cops get secrets cube, this time we're going to do the exact same thing, but do cops get secrets admin, and you're going to see a slightly different string. And we're going to come here and we're going to paste it in for token. We're going to sign in, and you're going to notice that, okay, we have a bunch of deployments. Okay, so one thing you'll note is I can do kubectl get deployments. I believe that's what it is, right? And you'll see Dandy Wasp, Dask Jupyter, Dask Scheduler, and Dask Worker. And notice you see the same three things here, but of course, this is a dashboard, so I can click through, actually get quite a bit of information, but this corresponds to what you could get in the command line. So if you're a fan of dashboards, this is a very useful way to explore what's happening. Remember before, I was actually looking at the various namespaces. So there's the default, which is going to tell me a variety of information. But remember, we were actually looking at Cube System, and that's where the dashboard was installed. Okay. There's a lot of information that's very useful here. If you actually create a service job or a cron job within Kubernetes, you can monitor it here. One thing I want to draw your attention to are the pods. Okay, so a pod, like to kind of wave my hand a little bit, you can think of a pod as a running application. There's a lot more details that I'm kind of glossing over there, but a pod, you can do this. You can do kube control, get pods, and you're going to have the same information in the dashboard that you have at the command line. And what you can do is you can drill into the information from the command line about an individual pod. So if I wanted to learn a little bit more about my Jupyter node, I can just click and it's going to tell me quite a bit of information. When it was created, what events were happening. The events can be very useful for debugging and the like. And also the nodes, this can be pretty useful. And another one I find pretty useful are the role, looking at the roles tab. Okay. All right. So hopefully that was pretty useful. I find the Kubernetes dashboard to be pretty effective for managing a Kubernetes cluster without actually having to go through all of the individual specifics within the command line. It's very useful for getting a quick overview of the state and the health of a cluster.